Welcome to this new season of Power Up Podcast. We're very excited to welcome some very special guests. These guests have been selected because they're truly inspirational individuals with some amazing stories to share, and they're great examples of power up and what we describe as our 7 natural powers in action.
And I am totally delighted that the very first guest on this very new season is a very good friend of mine, Brian Wood. Brian Wood was a former colour sergeant in the Princess of Wales Royal Regiment. He was awarded the Military Cross for gallantry in combat and leadership under extreme enemy fire in the Iraq War. He put his life on the line on several occasions, and the acts of him and the people under his leadership saved the lives of many other soldiers. In 2019, his book, Double Crossed, it documents the 3 main battles in his life. The first being ambushed under intense enemy fire with no cover on the battlefield. The second was the transition between military and civilian life and the mental challenges associated with that. And the third, and probably the most challenging, was being falsely accused of hideous war crimes for which he was later completely acquitted. In 2020, he decided in the middle of a pandemic to start a global fitness brand, Keep Attacking, with no real experience of fitness clothing and certainly no experience of the rag trade, but we'll go into more about that a little later. In 2021, the BBC made a dramatisation of his life. It's the most fantastic and inspiring programme I think I've ever watched, and it's called Danny Boy, and that documents that journey and some of the challenges that Brian's faced in his life.
Amazing story, and I like Lisa, I'm delighted, Brian, that you can be with us today. I mean, certainly in terms of the 7 natural powers, extraordinary program, you certainly have displayed every single one. And in this episode, we're going to explore Brian's story in a little bit more detail. Battlefield to business, his principles, his values, and lessons that have been kind of woven throughout his life. So we're absolutely delighted to have you here, Brian. Lisa, I know, is a personal friend of yours. I've had the pleasure of meeting you a few times. So I think absolutely brilliant to have you here. We've been talking about having you on our podcast for some time. So thank you for joining us today.
No, honestly, I really appreciate it. And, thanks for taking the time to reach out to me to come and share some of my experiences. I hope there's a few takeaway points that people can extract from the journey. And, look, I mean, it was probably the best introduction I've ever had, but Lisa is obviously by, but appreciate it. So thanks for having me.
So, I know that you're incredibly busy and you often share your story with audiences all around the globe. And so the fact that you are giving up your time to share your story and, share your inspiration with our audience, we're very, very grateful. So thank you for that. I think probably the best place to start, we could probably do an episode on every single aspect
right.
Spoken about, but you do want to just give a bit of a background in terms of your military career, if you can do that, in a condensed format, and the circumstances surrounding the award of the Military Cross.
Yeah, I think I was always destined to serve my country. My dad had served, my granddad, my great granddad. We got hundreds of unbroken service, and it was just kind of a natural sort of direction for me to go. Once I didn't make it as a footballer, it was my sort of secondary course of action. And as a 16 and 9-month-year-old lad, I was at the platform at Liphook, bag on my shoulders, ready for this incredible journey. And I kind of, from sort of the first day of being involved in this belonging, brotherhood, institution, I understood quite early that I can absolutely thrive in this environment because it's given me so much direction, so much structure, and really go on to achieve. And I joined, as you said in the intro, the 1st Battalion, the Princess of Wales Royal Regiment. And as a Hampshire regiment. It was my local regiment, and then off I went, and sort of got my head sort of really in tune with what I wanted to achieve. And then in 2000, so I finished training in 97, got to my regiment in 98, and then went on my first peacekeeping tour, which was in 2000, which was a real eye-opener for me because it was my first operational tour. You do 6 months of pre-deployment, so you understand the pressures, the professionalism that needs to be, the vigilance that needs to, every day you have to be heightened, just understanding this whole professional ability before you go away to foreign fields. And it really gave me a good understanding at 20 years old what to expect. But like I said, it was peacekeeping tour. I did 2 tours of Kosovo, which I always say was my foundations to get me to understand what it is to become a soldier and to go on operations. And then I had my first real experience of war fighting, which was my first tour of Iraq. I did 2 tours of Iraq, but my first tour, it's made an imprint to this day, to be honest. And we'll talk about that,
What's it like then, as a young soldier, you get told that you're going to Kosovo, and that obviously has some anxieties probably and challenges associated with it. But then you get told that you're going on the front line. This is it. This is everything that you've been training for. What so young to go through something like that.
Yeah, but the military is a profession, and it's like let's, for an example, talk about a football team. They train every single day, and they want to practice or conduct from training, playing. And it's the same as us. We train, and we want to sort of find out. For me personally, I wanted to know how I would react and act, going on operations, because it is a different ball game from training. And but within football, if you get it wrong, you lose. But within the military, if something happens and you get it wrong, then it has, a real impact. So, it's 2 different sides of the end state, but you kind of, I kind of use that as an example, because when you're training, you want to play. You absolutely want to play. And it's the same as us in the military. You're given all the tools, all the training, all the direction that is needed, and then you want to go and fulfill that. So, I was quite lucky to go to Kosovo to give me that understanding, to later on it come into, full focus when I was under extreme pressure from sort of day one of landing in Iraq.
And so in terms of the, and I've, over the years, I literally could listen to the stories that you share. I mean, they're totally shocking. And to somebody that's never been in that sort of world, you just sort of think, how can someone cope with that sort of pressure and that sort of, it's a pretty black and white outcome, isn't it? You either make it or you don't. And obviously we know that thousands and thousands haven't, and have sadly lost their lives. But in terms of the circumstances around the situation where you were awarded the Military Cross, just to give the listeners a sense of the intensity of life on the front line, can you share the circumstances if you don't mind?
Yeah, there was 3 major incidences that I was involved in that then I was written up for to then be awarded the Military Cross, and I'll skim over them, and if anyone wants to know more detail, then they can have a look at the book and go into detail on the book. On the 1st of May, we were going on a resupply to it was basically a compound in the middle of Alamara, which I call bandit country. It was just so volatile. And we had our Y company, which was about 40 men and women, basically under siege every single day. And we were tasked to go and resupply them with ammunition, water, batteries, food, so on and so forth. And on the way in, we were hit ourselves by 2 AT-4 Soviet Union missiles, which come straight through the side of our vehicle, sort of blew us up. I was in the back, and you know, there was other younger lads. I was 23 in Iraq, and I was the oldest, and the other two lads in the back of the vehicle, and we were all casualties. There was so much confusion, so much chaos, because I actually thought we'd hit a landmine. I didn't know that it was fired from the rooftops, these rockets. So I thought it was a pressure pad, and it was full up with smoke in the back of this vehicle. There was a lot of screaming. There was so much noise from the outside that was, you know, machine gun fire. Trying to figure out, you know, what's going on. The back of the vehicle started to fill up with thick black smoke because the respirators were in the back, and it's like thick rubber, and they were alight. So there's a lot of smoke going on, and then my feet were wet, and I thought it was because I'd been hit and I was bleeding out. So I looked down, and it wasn't my blood. It was the diesel tank had been hit and started to fill the back up with diesel, and then there was a fire in the front left of where I was sitting, which was burning my gunner, who's screaming to put him out. So I'm trying to figure this all out. Obviously, I need to put the fire out, so I grabbed the internal fire extinguisher. But what you're meant to do is when you crack the fire extinguisher, because it's not a conventional one that you press and it, you know, press and push and it's, you know, sprays whatever's in there. It was an unconventional one, so you smash the back of it, throw it, and then it takes all of the oxygen within the back of that vehicle out, and it obviously takes the fire out. But I never read it, and obviously in that situation you get seconds to make a decision. So what you're meant to do is get out of the vehicle, smash it in, and smashed it. And as I've done it, my mate's like, "No, Woody, we're meant to get out," and I was like committed then. So I was like, "Oh well." So but it froze straight to my hand, and like I threw it, and it did do its job because it took the fire straight out, but it also took all of our oxygen out, and it was carnage. I mean, it's basically holding your breath to your most extreme, and that gasp, it really was like that. But when you're gasping, you're just taking in all of that black soot smoke, and this is all happening around us. I've got no control of this situation because Johnson Bahari, who went on to be awarded the Victoria Cross, he's the driver, and I'm screaming at him, "Just drivers, get us out of this killing area," because we call it, when you are funneled in, we call it a killing area, and it's really vulnerable. And I was like, "Just drive," but the vehicle that we were in had been hit and it was immobilized. So I was just like, "That's us," you know. We can't get out of the vehicle because of what's going on from the rooftops, because all the militia are fighting hard from the rooftops, and I can hear what's getting hit and what's going on outside the vehicle. Inside the vehicle, we're all casualties. These young lads are looking at me for reassurance. I like to think I'm quite calm in chaos, giving them a little bit of direction, as in what I knew at that point was just bear with us. Bear with it, everything's going to be all right. So reassuring the young 18, 19, I'm only 23 myself, just reassuring these guys. And then as we were doing this, the vehicle had kicked back in and then got us to a safe haven. So that was the 1st of May. 14th of May was obviously the infamous Battle of Danny Boy. And it all started, it was at 14:30 hours, so blistering heat. I'm talking like heat that you would not experience. You would only experience it once in a lifetime, I think, when it's like 45 to 50 outside, and then inside an armoured 33-ton vehicle, it's an oven, and it's just, you've really got to be on top of hydration. And there were so many people going down with heat exhaustion. It was serious, real serious stuff. And when you're carrying all of your kit as well, your body armour, you are just dripping. It's like a tap of sweat. And we were basically on a mission to go and extract 2 soldiers that had been hit and were casualties from the Argyll and Southern Highlanders. And we were punching down a main supply route, Route 6, which was the main route from Basra all the way to Baghdad. And we were in the middle on Al Amara. And as we were on our way down, we were just, but this was different. This was not in the city, which we were normally fighting in the city. This was outside, in the open. And our vehicle come to a halt. I was in the back very disorientated. You don't really know what's going on because you've only got a small window, and with condensation and grit, there's not a lot you can see out of it. So it's like just figuring out what's going on. But I knew we were in contact and we were in a firefight. The vehicle behind us pushed forward to go and extract casualties, and we were going to stay and fight. So we had an exchange of gunfire, and then my commander was like, there's 15 to 20 militia. These are the weapon systems. So it's traditional Middle Eastern weapon system, AK-47, just with RPGs, and so on. Wait. So we waited. I told the guys in the back what was going on. And then, the vehicle wasn't having the effect that it wanted to, so we needed boots on the ground. And then we were going to go and launch a counter-attack on this enemy stronghold, which were dug in. So like French shell scrape type of defensive position. And we were going to go across open ground and close and destroy the enemy, which that was like World War type stuff. We do train for worst case. We do train to get close and personal, but never in a million years did I think this was ever going to be the case or I was going to be involved. But I was issued orders. I knew the intent. The unifying purpose was in order to, destroy all evil that was trying to kill us. So I get that. But I'm not a universal soldier. I'm just a normal lad who volunteered his service. I would like to think I was a professional soldier, but in that situation, knowing as soon as I get out of this vehicle, we're going to be going, our tactics are going to be like the greatest generation, World War generation, who's going across open ground in this stronghold. But, with belief, with some direction, with breaking things down, because what I always like to do is break things down, whether it's a project or even when it's in the most extreme circumstances. You're still entitled to a cigar moment, which is your thought process. So to break it down. So I call it phased. It was going to be like a phased operation. So first phase was get out of the vehicle and get into some sort of holding position where I can actually see the enemy, see where that position. That's phase one. Phase two was to get up and to start the approach on this stronghold. That was phase two. Phase three was to close and destroy the enemy within that stronghold.
Which time do you get to?
The thing is, you understand this because of some of the courses that you go on.
Yeah.
So full process, then it's like you get delivered orders, you understand the orders, you extract what you need to extract from the orders, and then you kind of deliver it as a young junior commander. And I was only a young lance corporal, but I still understood the process. And like I always like to think, I've said it before, I'm quite composed when it comes to the extreme. Like I think if how you react is very infectious. So if I was to flap about, scream and shout, we can't control the adrenaline, people will then react to that and then start screaming and shouting and doing stuff because they think that's how it should happen. But if you're calm in the moment of chaos, give clarity, give direction and reassurance, I think people seem to buy off that better, because then they're not doing some mad extreme knee jerk because of what's going on. And I was full of fear. People say, "Oh yeah, but you cracked it." It doesn't happen like that. I was scared, senseless. I had full of fear because I was going to get out into something that I've never experienced before. I knew it was life or death, and I had to suppress that somehow. You've got to control this fear and use it in a different way. So how I used this fear and adrenaline was actually to get me out of the back of the vehicle, because it's fight or flight. It doesn't matter how trained you are, train, but you never know how people are going to react until you're in the moment. So it's fight or flight, isn't it?
Yeah.
And when that door opens, what are you going to do? Are you going to come with me? Am I going to go? You like to think how you're going to react, but until you're in them situations, not sure. So what I did was I used that fear and that adrenaline and that emotion to actually get me out of the vehicle and get me into the ditch where I was going to then have a look what I had in front of me. And that's what I did. I said to the guys, look, this is what I'm going to do. You know, hopefully I've empowered them enough to follow me. I was going to lead by example because I'm a big example setter. I think it's just one of the small fundamentals of leadership. I'll never ask someone to do something that I'm not prepared to do myself. So therefore I should go first. You know, we have a saying in the military, like, leaders will eat last, because it's so important, you know, to have that authority within leadership. And when it's extreme, you should go first, because that's what we do. We make sure we were example setting. So I was setting this example, even though it was wild, to go achieve what I've been told to go and achieve. And you know what? It was full of courage, full of fear, full of tenacity.
I imagine, Brian, that, you know, you're in that moment, you know, they're looking at you and your emotional state, as much as you're in fear, you've got to try and hide that, because you've got to give them the confidence to come with you.
3 years old, though, it's just unbelievable, isn't it?
It is. I mean, it does. I mean, just listening to you know, I'm creating an image in my head. I'm sure it's not completely representative, but, you know, you're trying to, you do a good job of bringing us into that situation, what it actually would be like, or, you know, some sense of what it would be like. I'm sure it's very hard to kind of imagine. And also, I'm just trying to think of myself at 23 years old. That's the bit.
You're the oldest.
That's the bit that I really, you know, I just think, wow, that's quite something. You know, at that age. And these things have got to shape. You know, it's got to shape how you respond to things in the world today. You know, by comparison, nothing is going to be as bad as that. I mean, you know, you say you're fairly calm. Do you think that has made a difference to you in the? Or not?
About things, I still, you know, I get under pressure, and I've been to the extreme. So nothing's, like you say, nothing's really going to. But what I will say is, at 23, going through what I'd gone through, it wasn't uncommon. I've seen so much bravery from some young, incredible men and women through my career. Like, when I look back now, I'm 43 now. So when I look back, I think fair play. Some incredible example setters, inspirational men and women under so much pressure. I always think, you know, and I'm biased, the military is the top 5% of this greatness. You know, and I'm going to digress slightly, but I should, because it's not just going operational. If there's an issue with fire strikes, the British Army will step up. If there's an issue with strikes in the airports, the British Army will step up. If there's floods, the British Army will step up. The COVID, British Army stepped up. So we're just so flexible, but deliver under a real tight time constraint. But I do believe it's because everyone is bought into the same mission. There's a mission, everyone gets it, and everyone really works hard to achieve in best and good order. Things do go wrong, but that's life. Things don't go to plan, because I think it was Mike Tyson said, everyone has a plan until you're punched in the face. You can plan and plan and plan and plan, but as soon as we have a contact, you've got to renew that. But we also do have considerations as well for that. But the considerations that you put in, there's always some that aren't thought of that you have to react to, because flexibility is a principle of war. So going across open ground, conducting trench warfare was like, it's had a massive impact on me even to this day. But you sort of just have to get rid of that process of extreme trauma, you know, everything that happened after that big battle with recovery of bodies and so on and so forth. It was just chaotic, really, really bad, and affected me like quite severe. And on the 1st of June, we were actually quick reaction force in a old prison, which we named Broadmoor, because we always code name certain areas. And this was Broadmoor prison. Our camp that we normally operate from was getting rockets sent into it. That's kind of daily. That happened daily. And we were tasked to go down and basically eliminate the militia's mortar team. but they know exactly what we will do. They know exactly we're going to react, and they're going to get ready for that. So we were going to go in, and on the way in, the lights had gone out. So I knew that's quite a combat indicator that things are going to get quite tasty. And then sure enough, it was just like bonfire night. It was wild. And so we're under attack again from the rooftops, and all sorts was happening. And I was in the back at this point again, because I was like the dismount commander.
Are you in an urban sort of area?
Yeah, in the city. Yeah, in the city.
Ah.
So the Battle of Danny Boy was out in the open. That's why it was so rare to fight in the open. Normally, we would always be city fighting. So this was in town. And you know what it's like. If you went into like your local town, whether it be, I don't know, Guildford, Farnham, and you look at the high rises.
Yeah.
I always say, I operated in Afghanistan as well, but Iraq for me was so testing, because you just could not find and fix the enemy. They were in the windows, rooftops, alleyways, doorways, gone. And it's so difficult to get a fix on any of them. It was really tough. But they can get a fix on us. And when you're taking casualties and you're just not really having the effect that you want to, it's really frustrating. But it's part and parcel of it, because they don't really adhere to Geneva Convention, and we've got so much restraints, and rightly so. We've got a lot of restraints against us, and it's difficult. But that's why we're I believe the best military in the world, because we understand the Geneva Convention and rule of law, and we apply that. So, the 1st of June, we're there. It's crazy. It's so noisy as well. I mean, the back, it's quite muffled because you're protected by the armor to a degree. And then I was in a different vehicle at this point, because normally I was in my boss's vehicle, but because of our manpower and casualties, I was switched to a different vehicle. So Johnson's vehicle, which is our support vehicle, isn't moving. It's not moving at all. It's been hit pretty bad. We don't know what's happened, whether it's my boss is a casualty who gives the direction on intercom to Johnson, or Johnson's a casualty because the vehicle's not doing anything. It's just still.
And this is Johnson Bahari who
yeah.
Victoria,
yeah. So I'm like, oh, what's happening? And I can hear on the intercom a lot of confusion. My stick broom, my commander's asking the vehicle to do a number of things. It's not responding. So he said to me, Woody, I'm going to have to reverse up. I'm going to open the back door. Can you jump on the front of the vehicle to check at the driver's hatch what's going on, or the commander's hatch to see if we've got casualties? And I was like, yeah, no worries. And this is under the most extreme violence as well. From the rooftops, it's hard work. So me and Coops would have a chat saying, right, we'll get up. Both of us get on we call it the front decks of the armoured vehicle, have a look in the driver's hatch, see what's going on. Went on the top decks, had a look in the driver's hatch, see what's going on. And sure enough, I've seen some devastating things throughout this tour. But this was carnage, because he was his facial injuries were just so severe. He basically got hit direct with a rocket propelled grenade, direct hit to the face. And the indents, I've never quite seen something so bad. And he was unresponsive. So under this chaotic of fire, me and Coops are pulling him out of this driver's hatch and then trying to get him into the back of the vehicle that I was in to then crack on with first aid and life-saving treatment. But I'll tell you what Johnson did, which was so professional. As a private soldier, as a driver, you haven't got masses and masses amounts of responsibility. But what he did, he was very proactive, because he said, because it was such a violent tour, he was like, well, if I'm a casualty, who's going to drive this vehicle? So I'm going to show the lads how to drive it. So in the spare downtime that we had, his foresight was the dismounts need to know how to drive this vehicle in the case of emergency, because we're not all drivers, and it's a huge 33-ton armoured vehicle. So he took the lads through driving this vehicle off his own back, and sure enough, what he was anticipating had happened. And now Coops is like, well, I can drive it. I said, can you? He's like, yeah. I was like, all right, it's news to me. He's like, Johnson showed me. And I was like, fair play. I said, right, just follow us. And we now need to get Johnson back to Broadmoor Prison, which where our UK base was. And then the Chinook will come in and and extract Johnson to then crack on and get him to a hospital. And we kind of got back to Broadmoor. It was madness. And then the next time I see Johnson actually was at Buckingham Palace, where he was being awarded the Victoria Cross, which obviously we know is the highest award for valour and bravery. And I was being awarded the Military Cross, which is courageous in the front of enemy.
So, thank you for sharing that, Brian. I mean, it's just, I've heard that story, a number of times, and it just has me on the edge of my seat, mouth open every single time, because it's just so difficult to, put yourself in that sort of position, but the way you tell the story, it does, like Martin was saying, it does give you a sense
of the picture. Yeah,
what it must like to be there. And so why obviously people can read the book and watch the drama, because we're quite keen to get on to your life outside of the military as well. But I mentioned in the opening the 3 battles that you faced, and the book and the subsequent BBC drama Danny Boy document those as well. Why was it important to you to tell that story?
I think there was an element of truth that needed to be told that was missed, especially with the allegations.
Yeah.
I also wanted to highlight.
Can we just actually clarify that? Because I don't think we've actually talked about what were the allegations.
Yeah.
So what were these? So you've got this amazing things that you've done. You've been awarded the Military Cross, and then what comes next? What were the circumstances and what were the accusations, which ultimately led to you writing the book?
Yeah, basically that they said that there were innocent farmers ploughing their fields, and we went and basically took them off their farmers' fields, took them back to our camp, lined them up against the wall, and massacred 20 of them, and then took 9 as POWs. But as mad as I thought that sounded, and I was like, whatever, it got traction, believe it or not. And then Panorama launched an investigation called On Whose Orders that made us look out to be barbaric murderers. And then it just went from 0 to 1,000. Martin, I had press outside my parents' house, my house, my brothers getting stopped and asked questions. And all of a sudden, from being awarded the Military Cross, which was, other than my kids being born and my wedding day, was like the proudest moment of my life, to now have that shadow casted over. And it was like pressure that I've never experienced before, because when you're on the battlefield, you're trained. When I was on home soil, after surviving everything that I went through, being awarded the Military Cross by Her late Majesty the Queen, to now these barbaric allegations of murder, mutilation and mistreatment be then put into the press, being put onto Panorama, I was like, didn't know how to cope with it all.
Where are these coming from? Where are these accusations coming from?
Phil Shiner, so he's a public interest lawyer, a lot of credibility, award-winning lawyer, and he seen an angle to get in with the MOD, to ask questions on how the British Army operated in Iraq. And he was just out, I think, for money, because he was getting paid. I mean, the Al Sweeney inquiry lasted 5 years and it cost the taxpayer £31 million. And Phil,
wasn't it? Was it around 2015 or something?
Yeah, well, that was when it was done. That was when the chairman of the inquiry, Sir Thane Forbes, came up with his summary of deliberate lies, reckless speculation and ingrained hostility. But how karma works, like Phil Shiner is now going on trial for everything that he was involved in, and the money laundering and everything else. So digressing slightly, the book was to highlight a lot of things. It was to highlight the lack of support that me and my family received from the MOD, and I wanted to look. I'm not gonna put the knife in and twist it. I didn't even do that to Shiner. I just highlighted failings, because what am I going to achieve by like really going in and ridiculing him? It's not who I am. It's not my values. I just wanted to highlight the wrongdoing, and also get a lot of stuff off my chest, and within my head space as well, to get it into a book. And it was in moments cathartic. It was very hard in other moments because, you know, there was a lot of trauma that I'd experienced and some that I just never spoke about. My second tour of Iraq was quite quiet. It was a withdrawal, but unfortunately one of the lads put a light machine gun in his mouth and pulled the trigger, and I was third person onto that scene, and I never spoke about it. I never spoke about it, but it was so hurtful because there was so much carnage that morning, and it could have been, I believe, stopped if he had a spoke, and he didn't. And, you know, and now we're sort of trying to deal with the aftermath of it, and it was just so hard to deal with. And
I can understand how, you know, especially important it is, you know, your amazing son Bailey is now, you know, in the military as well. And, you know, if you hadn't spoken up and highlighted this sort of thing, you know, what chance is there for the future to change for people like Bailey and his...
Yeah. No, it's important. And that's why I'm a big advocate for it, because there's a lot of pressure in the world these days, and people, you know, react different to pressure and circumstances. And it's important for me to tell my story. And I never got it right. And actually, I went and sought help. But what I was going back to the book, sorry, you know, it was so important for me to get a lot of things into the book that were missed. And I wanted to highlight a lot of stuff, and I want to talk about my own emotional journey. A lot of the stuff in my book is physical, but also the mental, the emotion that I went through, and also being honest about my own recovery journey. Yeah. Because I did go and seek help. I went through this journey of growth. You know, it was sort of the trauma that had me, but actually when I went to therapy and started creating this amazing toolkit that this professional and the direction that they gave me, I started to go on this post-traumatic growth, which was really important for me. And so, yeah, writing the book was really important, but I never knew in a million years how well it would do. And then going on to the Sunday Times, and it was like crazy, to be honest.
And then sharing your story, you know, all around the world, didn't it? You know, it's just an incredibly inspiring story. And, you know, we will obviously put the link to the book and the link to the drama. I urge the listeners to go and read the book and 100% watch the dramatization as well.
My understanding is that, you know, you weren't necessarily supported initially by the military. You felt a little bit deserted, and hence the book Double Crossed. Why did you call it Double Crossed? Was it because of that? I mean,
it was the MOD, the lack of support from the MOD. But I felt like they were just like, no, I'm not going to get involved in that because it's too much controversial stuff for the MOD, and they just left me on my own to trying to pick up the pieces.
That's incredible. And so, going full circle, then, what lessons do you think have been has it created for the MOD? Or has it? I mean, has it actually?
I think I actually went to Whitehall, sat on a panel about lawfare, and I spoke about what happened to me and the lack of duty of care. Look, that regardless of what happens within the military, they should have a duty of care to make sure everyone's okay. And in this case, they never did. So that was a massive highlight, which I like to think they've now implied. Statute of limitation. I mean, I sometimes forget what happened last week, let alone 10 years ago, going into the most traumatic events of my life, then having to relive it for another 5 years. You know, it was tough. So I was like, well, where do you draw the line? There has to be something that is timed out because it's so tough, you know. And I don't know if anything's been done on that side of it, but this is what I was asking for. A bit of, you know, a bit of, look, if there's something done wrong, absolutely. If there's evidence that it's clearly wrongdoing, it has to be investigated and really, but this was just not like that. And it was so frustrating.
Yeah. I mean, I can see how, I mean, and draw parallels. I'm sure anyone listening to this can draw parallels with their own life. And you come to a point where you've had some misfortune, bad circumstances, treated badly, something's gone wrong. It could either be of your own doing, it could be of other people's doing, but you certainly get to a point where you have to either decide to look forward. You could make you very, very bitter and angry and actually literally change the rest of your life. I mean, it's not unusual, is it? Let's be honest, to find people in your circumstances, very, very sadly, finding them on the street. They've turned to drinks and drugs and it's desperate and very bad to see. But it's an easy place. It's a direction you could have gone, or other people could have gone. So, is there a sort of a point at which you thought, right, okay, that has happened to me. I have to let it shape my future. I'm not going to let it. I'm not going to live with bitterness and anger. Tell us a little bit about that, because I can identify with that. Nothing on the scale you're talking about. But I do remember when we had the whole redundancy in my own company, there was a lot of unfairness about it looking back. But I remember I was at a point where I go, well, do I go down a lawful route and go to a lawyer and go down a litigation route? Or do I just go, right, I can't do much about it, and I'm going to build a new life. This is what I'm trying to do here, is make this really relevant to people listening and thinking, people have had some bad shit happen to them. So it's a decision time. What did you do with all of that?
It was quite hard to really move forward until the chairman inquiry and the summary had come out, because I was in and out of London with statements, interviews for 5 years, and it was difficult to draw a line and move forward because I was still involved in all of this. So I couldn't really draw a line and then punch forward. So, but I still tried to remain positive, and that's where my mantra came. When I was really low, and it was hard, but I could never feel sorry for myself. I had to show up and attack the day, and I took each day as it came. Show up, attack the day. Show up, attack the day, and just keep attacking. And I believed if I had that attitude, that what I was going through, at some point, my luck will start to change, and it will surpass everything that I was going through. So I just tried, and I just continued serving within the military. I was continued teaching at the highest level. With the Royal Marines, the Royal Marines Senior Command course, I was instructing there at the highest level. And I just tried to sort of figure out. I still went on another further 2 operational tours under allegations, which I think is barking mad. Looking back now, I should have questioned that. But I do it for the men and women around me. I was a leader and I was a commander, and I did it for them. And I had a responsibility to look after them on operations, and that's why I didn't really make a fuss. But I went on a further 2 demanding operational tours under allegation, which is mad, really. But crazy. It should never have happened. But for me, 2014 it was when the chairman announced it, and it was on TV. It was huge, and he was like, deliberate lies, reckless speculation, ingrained hostility. It's done. And I was like, that's where the line is going to be drawn. Now I punch forward. Actually, I got out the army.
Yeah. Is that moment you decided to leave the army?
Yeah. There was a couple of reasons why. One of the biggest reasons, I was done. I was emotionally exhausted, and I just needed to come away from what I'd known all my life. But it was a big decision.
Absolutely.
One of the best decisions I made, though, and it allowed me to start afresh.
And what year was
that? I got out in 2015.
2015, right, okay.
And it's probably a good time to talk about that transition. How supported are you in making the transition from pretty structured military environment into civilian life?
I think it's down to the individual to embrace transition, to try and embrace the transition. It's scary, of course it is, because you're coming out of an organisation that is an institution that you are giving clear directions, timings, what to wear, what you need to carry on you. And, you know, you get that every day. So it's so structured. And then when you come away from it, you lose your identity, because I'm not a colour sergeant instructor anymore. I'm just Woody. I'm not like a military cross recipient. I'm just Woody. And it's like, you know, when things go wrong, where's my mutual support? Normally, I'm in a room or I'm in an organisation with people around me who can lift me up when I'm, you know, when I trip over, or if I'm stuck, they will have some good answers, you know, for me to then take on board to then punch forward. So you lose that, and then you're on your own.
Yeah.
But for me, I thought I just needed to try and embrace everything, forget about what had gone on. You know, I'm not going to let that define me. I'm not going to play victim like a few people did. I'm just going to like move forward with a real sense of purpose, energy, desire, hunger, and go and try and be successful.
That's one thing that has always been apparent with you. I mean, we had conversations at the point that you came out of the army, and it was so apparent that you'd lost your identity, and you know, there was a little bit of a period, wasn't there, where you were like, you know, what do I do? Like, who do I speak to? You know, where is the support network? And then you did the fundraising role for the PWRR, and you know, we did some work together then. And what was really apparent really quickly was that the sense of purpose that you have, not only at the task at hand, but the impact of that task. So, you know, raising the funds for the PWRR, you always had the higher cause at front of mind. And the other thing is that you are the best person I know in making connections with people and finding a way to do things, even when there's not a set of instructions necessarily in front of you. And that's something that's, you know, carried on the whole way through. I mean, even things like when you talk to me about the Ultimate Sacrifice Challenge, you know, and what you wanted to achieve with that, I was immediately going into logistics mode, thinking, that's a massive undertaking. How do we possibly, you know, go about doing that? And you just started running.
Yeah.
You know? And we were talking last night, Martin, weren't we? You can act yourself into a new way of thinking, but you can't think yourself into a new way of acting. And that is something that you do time and time again to your success.
Yeah, I mean, it's on the transition side of it, it is difficult. It is scary. It's daunting. You know, when you are, even if it's starting a new role, things change. The culture changes because people act and do things differently in different sectors of work. And you have to try and embrace change. You've got to, you know, it is scary, but you've got to have that courage to sometimes step into that scary threshold. If you want change, you're going to have to make the change, because nothing changes if nothing changes. And I knew I was going to come away from this organization, which is so structured. I was looked at, you know, I'm trying to be humble, but I was very well known within the military. And all of a sudden I'm like, who even am I now?
But it's your identity.
That's the biggest thing.
Gone.
Yeah.
The character's gone, the structure is gone.
Yeah.
So you're in this sort of place of flux, and you've lost a sense of actually who you are and your identity. So how did you, I mean, sometimes, Brian, you know, these lessons you don't realize you're having a lesson at the time.
Yeah.
But when you then look back, you can realize actually that is the lesson I got, or this is what I did. So how you know, someone listening to this and thinking, well, I'm in that position, I've just been made redundant, or I made this half reckless decision and just quit my job, but without realizing I was going to get the next one, right? And they find themselves in that sort of place of flux. What do you think are some of the things that people could think about doing well, I mean, as you use your brand, keep attacking, which is where you got the name from, right? You know, it's what you said you were doing before. What kind of advice can you give to those people that are in that place of not having that level of certainty and identity?
Yeah, I'm not going to call myself some oracle, But what I've been through this transitional phase, and for me, it was really important to keep my personal structure. So
Right. Okay.
I wasn't going to change my personal structure. And Lisa knows I'm out and I run most days. So, and if you meditate, then you continue to meditate. If you're up at a certain time, you're up at a certain time. Just because you don't have to now, this is a problem because you're like, well, I don't need to. And it's a problem because you then, when you do find a space to go into, you then struggle to regain because you're like, well, you get used to, like, and I tell you, for example, pandemic, people lost their way on their structure because they were at home and they're like, well, I don't need to, yeah? I'm in my dressing gown. Yeah. Now I'll just chill out. And it's like, you know, you've got to hold yourself to account. You know, you've got to be accountable for your own actions, and you've got to maintain your values and who you are and be true to yourself. For me, it was structure throughout the pandemic and throughout my reintegration and transition. It was, I need to be structured because I've been structured all my life. So I need to try and maintain that.
So that's when you can maintain the consistency there. That's at least, you know, you might have that other bits being taken away, but so that's a really good point, I think, for people. And then growing into something different, because you're now transitioning into a business world, which is very, very different to whence you come from. So talk a little bit about your business and how you set up the business.
I mean, a lot of people would think it would be a crazy thing to do, set up a business like Keep Attacking in the middle of a pandemic. What inspired you to do it?
Look, I know I'm not the only person to go through some hard times. I know I'm not, you know, and I knew I had a message that people could really grab hold of, especially in the pandemic. So I have never been in business. I can't even spell entrepreneur. But I've got a vision, I've got a hunger, I've got a desire to succeed. And do you know what? If it wasn't going to succeed, then it wasn't without trying. So I love teamwear, clothing. I love, apparel. And people were, do you know what? People were sending me it. So when I was running and doing my videos, they were like, oh, can you wear this? Can you wear that? And I thought, this is like, if I get this right, it could be a little side hustle and it'll be quite cool, actually. So what I'm going to do, take some time, get some products, I'll wear them, I'll train in them, I'll make sure that they are, they're a good value for money. The message is so important because, it's in chaos or calm. We have to keep attacking, and people needed it. So I went and did that. Didn't have any money to start the business. So I thought, do you know what? I'm going to do a pre-order. I'll do a 2-week pre-order, maybe generate a lot of buzz on, and all I had for marketing really was my social media. Yeah. And generate a buzz. And when it's launched, hopefully sell a few T-shirts, hoodies, leggings, and then further down the line, let's just see what happens and we'll evaluate then.
And that's another example of, I think that the purpose and the vision for it was always much bigger than a set of clothing or it was much more about the movement around Keep Attacking, wasn't it?
It was about the messages I started to receive. Like the messages were so powerful, and even now the messages that I get is that's why I do it. Like I'm talking about people going through chemo and wearing their Keep Attacking t-shirt because they're not playing victim. They're on the offensive. They're in a battle. They've lost their job. I'm going to get a new one. Woody, I'm wearing this t-shirt because it's a body armor. Yeah. It is a body armor, and I'm moving forward, and I'm not playing victim. I know your story. You never did. That inspired me. We get so many messages about like BMXer wearing his helmet with a Keep Attacking sticker on it because he is there to try and make a difference and try and compete and achieve his dreams. But listen, you're not entitled to anything. It's got to be down to the individual. It's got to be down to you to try and figure it out. You can have the help, the support, you can talk, you can create dialogue, but the bottom line is it's you who has to get it done. And it just went supersonic. Like I'm talking global. We're shipping and we still ship, all over the world. And it's
Eric, hasn't it? And I have to say for the listeners as well, I am not just saying this. They are the best leggings that I have ever. And actually, I'm probably not very good for your business because I've still got the original 3 pairs that I've always had because they're so good.
Nah, it's,
that was quite a key thing, wasn't it? I remember you talking to me about it a while back. And you said that I want to use the best quality materials. So it's not just you want the quality in the brand as well, not just the actual. I mean, it's a very powerful message. And we know that people buy into things where there's a feeling. And what you've done is you've created a movement and a tribe, and something that somebody can actually identify with. And as you say, it doesn't matter whether you're starting a business, recovering from an illness, recovering from a setback. The principle of keep attacking is universal, but your quality is there as well.
Yeah, I think so. I've tried. Listen, I've made so many mistakes, so many. I've lost a decent bit of money as well because of the mistakes that I've made. But do you know what? It's a learning process. It's a journey, and I'm going to continue to make mistakes, as we move forward. But hopefully, I'll be, minimising them mistakes. But I must give credit to my wife, Lucy, who absolutely runs the business. I mean, she is flat out. She does all of the stuff that I don't want to do, which is the most important stuff. And I spearhead the brand. I make sure people understand the message. And we're now fully involved in teamwear. So, which is brilliant because I've been part of a team for so many years and understand the dynamics of teamwork and achieving as a team. And when people are putting, football clubs and rugby clubs, hockey, netball are putting on keep attacking's, teamwear on, some feeling, honestly. It is a great feeling.
You are inspiring, like you say, it is like it's like an armor.
Yeah, of course it is. I believe that. Individuals to do their best and
chaos and calm, keep attacking. It's just so inspiring.
What is the kind of ambition for the brand? I mean, I know that you started off well. Let's just see how it goes, and and there's a sort of a charming kind of innocence to all that. That you weren't a self-professed equipped business guy. You just had an idea and you ran with it, and it's built into something which is amazing. Now it is a business. So what's your ambition for it?
I think I'd like to see where we are in 10 years and maybe sell the business on. I don't know, but that's a bit of an ambition for me, but there's so much work to be done. But I also am a realist that I am keep attacking. So people, it's going to be, I might find it difficult to sell on when it's me, and I get that. And I love that. But that is an ambition of mine. So that's a goal.
Do you think that Bailey and Charlie, your sons, do you think they'll be sitting in the helm seat in future years?
I don't know. It's a difficult one because they're so in tune to go and achieve and carve their own path. They'll support me regardless. And actually, I always run a lot of things by Bailey because I have to make sure that when we're delivering kit, it's to the generation, the younger generation. So we're on trend. So Bailey is 19, so he gets it, and he will say to me, "Not really," or "That's smart," or tweak that. So it's good. It's good.
Threads, does Bailey, doesn't he?
Oh, he does.
So who does where does I mean, this is retail. It's apparel. It's fashion. Where does the design take place?
So we've got a design team. So everything. So basically, we are probably moving more into teamwear because it's our biggest and most exponential growth that we've seen over the last year. It's really kicking on.
So we should military again, aren't you?
Yeah, I mean, we do a lot for the military. We do a lot for the military. So we have to focus on the present and what's really generating at the moment. So, listen, I'm not a businessman by any stretch. I don't claim to be, but I know what works and what doesn't work. And we'll always have a shop for people to come on and grab a hoodie, leggings, running shorts, t-shirt. But our biggest growth and what is having a massive effect at the moment is teamwear. And also, if you're not selling, it's kind of dead money. So with teamwear, it's all bespoke. So if you were to give me, say, right, I want to sponsor my netball team or my daughter's netball team or my son's football team, there's some direction. We will go and design the most coolest design, but get you involved in the process.
Yeah.
So you're going to go on this journey with us and say, no, can you tweak this? Can you tweak that? Or can you do this, do that? Can you put the initials on here? And we go with it and we work hard with the clients. And that's what they really like. They have a real involvement in what we do because it's their design at the end of the day. You know, they'll give us the colorways, the logos, and then we'll do maybe four designs. They'll choose a design and then we'll work with that design and then they get their end product and they're really excited by it.
Amazing.
I see a bit of a power up, keep attacking design collaboration going on.
Absolutely. Get your hoodies.
I mean, that's why we wanted to get you on as well, because the ethos of keep attacking and what we're trying to do with Power Up, they're just so closely aligned.
Yeah.
The thing is, for me as well, like, and this is KA, is we don't give up. You're going to be told more no's than you get yeses, but we attack and we just keep attacking because there is great sense of pride when we, deliver or we get the tenders that we've tendered for, and you feel like a certain way when you do that because you're proud and you want to celebrate. And also sometimes you've just got to look if you haven't achieved and go, it just wasn't meant to be, but I'm going to go and get that next one and I'm going to tweak something slightly that I never sort of incorporated on my last pitch. But you know what? Sometimes we don't achieve. We don't fail. I don't like using the word fail. Yeah. I really don't like it. We learn, right? We learn. So
you always talked about after action reviews.
Always after action review. Always reviewing stuff. How can I tweak it? And sometimes it doesn't have to be huge, but you should always review your last project or your last exercise or your last order or your delivery, because there's always something that you can tweak and deliver that you're really making the best pitch or the best product that you can.
Yeah.
And also not being scared of feedback. If it's negative, like, it's got to be constructive. If someone says, Woody, this is shit, I'm like, okay, but define shit, please.
Yeah.
You know what I mean, though? Because I can't do anything with that. If you're going to say, look, the stitching or X, Y, and Z isn't quite up to standard, not a problem. I'll extract that and I'll go back to the factory and say, listen, this is some feedback from a really, really important client, because every client is important. We need to make change because it's important to do that. You've got to take criticism not personally, you take it professionally.
Yeah. I think, you say you're not a businessman and you say you're not an entrepreneur. That may not be a label you give yourself, but
I'm not.
Just watching the business grow and how you respond to opportunities, and you and Lucy, because of your personalities as well. And I think because you are so natural and complement each other so well and are so down to earth, you make connections and people gravitate towards you, and opportunities come to you because of you and what you stand for and everything that and all the efforts that you put in. Don't ever underestimate that.
Well, I think the key thing from my perspective is that there's a story to buy into.
Yeah.
Anyone listening to this who is, we have one of our powers is brand power, and what it absolutely sits at the heart of brand power is you've got to have a story that somebody can buy into, and that is got a very a strong story. One part of the brand message is also what is the purpose. It's almost inherent in the name, keep attacking. But do you actually have, if I said to you, Brian, what is your purpose? How would you answer that question?
I think for my business, my purpose for my business is to deliver a product that people put on and will achieve 2% more than a normal brand, because what it represents. It's not just a product. It's a way of life. It's really is a way of life. It's like so many people will be going through some tough times, whether it's being a teenager, because that's tough, whether it's a loss of a life in a family. Someone will be going through some stuff in a team. When they put that on, that has meaning. It has a purpose for someone else, not me. It's not my purpose. I mean, purpose for my business is try and do the best that I can. But I want to have an effective message in order to empower someone else.
Right.
It's a lot of the stuff I do, mine, to be fair, and you know this, is for other people. I love to give back. I try my hardest to give back. I try my hardest to sponsor so many people, but just I can't say yes all the time because I love helping, because I know that we're only 2 mistakes of being on our asses ourselves. And I like to think if I was down, that someone would have an extended hand to bring me up. And sometimes I just think the brand can do that because of what it stands for. I do believe that.
And you and the brand and the talks that you do, and you inspire so many people. I mean, I'm interested. Who is it that inspires you? Are there people that inspire you, or
it might be a bit cliche, but my dad and my sons. I mean, what Spaley's gone on to achieve now, serving within the parachute regiment, is he's done something that I couldn't do at that age. He's gone straight to test himself at the top of the apple tree. I had to understand everything before I went and done the commando course. He went straight from school and tested himself in an environment where, I mean, only a certain few make it. And that kid made it. So he's a huge inspiration to me. And other people's stories as well. Like I like listening to podcasts, and I keep saying, I'm not the only person to go through some demanding and tough times. And, I like listening to like Tommy Mallett's journey on his success, and, Steve Bartlett and how he perceives himself. And he's very articulate, and I really like him. He's gone on to be overly successful. So I do have some people that I sort of look up to and see their journey, which is not too dissimilar to our journey. Obviously, us being a lot smaller, but you never know what can happen. You never know. With belief and desire and hunger, and not afraid to make some big decisions, being accountable is a big thing for me, for your actions. You just never know where you're going to go to.
Have you actually now got a business that employs people, that manufactures this stuff, that is a business that makes you and your wife and whoever else a living?
Yeah, we're very comfortable. Me and Lucy are both employed. We had Wayne, my brother-in-law. He now works in London, which is all very good. And we've our last sort of 3 years, we've had 30% growth, 40% growth, and now year to date, it's just due in now. We're growing again. So we've just got this really good organic, strong growth. We're now making half decent profit. So
good.
It's good.
And are you actually? I mean, did you say you've got a shop as well?
Online.
Yeah, we've got an online shop. Like the thing is, this is what right. So basically, right, we've just also paid for a new website because, like I said, teamwear is our biggest. Yeah, it's our biggest market. I mean, there's not many people down south doing what I'm doing. There isn't, and I know once I get a grasp on this, it will go berserk. I know that anyway. There's not many people doing it. If not, maybe it's just us. So we've got a great market down south here. What we haven't got is a website to go. So say if you're a coach for a football team.
Teamwear website.
Yeah. So it's getting built now. We've just gone through that whole sort of transition. And the shop, which is on Shopify at the moment, in our shop, will then go into a shop drop-down icon on the teamwear site.
Okay.
But on the teamwear site will be football, boxing, cricket, because it's bulk sales and it's bespoke. So they'll order, I don't know, home and away kit with all the accessories, so warm-up tops, warm-up jackets, everything, what they need. That will then get delivered straight to them because it's all proof of the visuals are all proved. Or we send samples to make sure that they like the product. And then it's nothing's, then there's no dead money.
Yeah.
So I knew that. So, I mean, I do say to myself, I'm not a businessman, but I started to have, when I was doing the online shop, you have to be so on it and keep getting new products and keep getting new products. And if you're not selling, it's dead money. So I just thought, do you know what? I've got such a sporting background. It's bulk orders.
Yeah.
You know, it's not one and two bits and here and there, and it's massive. It's not as if we're like started from the kitchen and now we're millionaires. I mean, that's a great story, and we're not there yet, but we've got really strong growth. Which,
I mean,
you know, and Martin, I made a brash move to look at the team where we didn't have to. I could have like kept in the actual apparel game, but I've just thought, no, this is why I think we need to go to, and every single unit in the military has a sports team, and that'll be basketball, hockey, rugby, football. So actually, why can't they buy from me? Exactly. Instead of buying from Nike? You know, you buy from Nike, it's wholesaling, it's off the shelf, it's not uniquely designed to you. You're basically going to be putting a logo on a Nike.
You're selling.
I just look at your website and believe how much stuff you've got. Cycling and bloody hell. But the point I wanted to make was that, you know, you started this in 3 years ago. Yeah. Right. This sort of was a little idea, and here you are. One of the adages that we often talk about is this idea with vision, that people don't get started because they don't know enough or they don't have an end plan. They just don't start because they don't feel like, oh, I'm not quite sure about this, I'm not quite sure about that. What you've done is you've just gone and started. You've applied the philosophy of keep attacking, and here we are 3 years later, and you've now got an amazing online shop with masses of different brands. You're branching out into team clothing, and the brand message is really, it's won people's affection. Yeah. And it's a great story, Brian, and that's why I'm really trying to.
But everyone has a story, Martin. And you know, if I can,
the thing is, they've got a story, but they don't tell the story.
Yeah.
And they're embarrassed about it because they think, oh, my story is actually not that important or it's not special.
So I say to people, it is. Everyone has their own special story. It's having the courage to say, do you know what? If they want to do it, if they're flirting with the idea, I always say, you commit. Just commit. And if you can put all of your energy into it, then, and if it doesn't work, you can put your hand up and go, I tried. You can't live with regret. Like, that's hideous. One thing you can't ever do is live with regret. I've been fortunate enough, like, to travel to New York and speak on the most famous ship in the world. I've been so fortunate enough to speak to Call of Duty Modern Warfare in Santa Monica when I'm thinking, I'm so out my depth, it's embarrassing. It's like this imposter syndrome. Honestly, this imposter syndrome, I'm thinking, what am I doing here? I'm going into London and speaking to some of the biggest banks in the world thinking I'm well out of my league. But when I finish, the feedback that I have is like, I actually deserve to be there, but it's just in my head, I think. And I'm just Woody from Boardroom, got a bit of a story, but I'm in a bit of a demand element here. People are like trying to.
There's, you know, I know, you know, Matt, my husband, your very good friend, was with you on the Queen Mary recently, and he has known you for a very long time, and to see the effect that you had on the audience after telling your story, not a dry eye in the house, everyone on their feet. You have a story to tell, and just keep on telling it because it is inspiring a lot of people.
No, I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah, and I would encourage you to do it as well. Absolutely. One of the things that we talk about in Power Up, Brian, is that we sometimes overestimate what we can achieve in the short term, but we underestimate what we can achieve in the long term. And, you know, looking at your website, looking at from when you first produced those first few hoodies to looking at the website today, we do encourage people to go and have a look at it. It's amazing. And as I said, very high quality stuff. It mind boggles where you could get to in 3 to 4, even 3 to 4 years. And I know money is not your driver here. You didn't start off with that as a big driver. You're massively into contribution. And I think that's a real lesson for anyone listening. is that if you make your central reason for being something that adds value to the world and adds value to people's lives, adds value to society, that is what people love. And that's what people buy into. And you've got a wonderful kind of innocence about you that, you know, when I kind of sort of, even if I ask you sort of a business type questions, you're not really interested. Well, you are interested, but you're not. Whereas
the thing is, Martin,
it's not your main thing, which I love, which I think is brilliant, and that's just why the brand will continue to grow.
It is authentic. That's what it is. It's not trying to be anything it's not. It is authentically, the message is authentic, and you delivering that message and Lucy delivering that message is authentic, which is why it is a brand that people love.
Yeah, I mean, I've never had money because you don't get paid a lot of money to serve this country, and so it's not a massive driver for me. No. What drives me is to be the best I can be, you know. And if that then it turns into success and great. Look, if I can get Lucy away to get her nails done, her hair done, and have a spa and that, I've achieved my aim. That's like incredible stuff for me to go and do, because what she's been through and stood behind me, you know, it's remarkable. And that's why I keep digging my heels in, and the vision for longevity, the growth. And if you were to say, right, get your sort of P&L out, I'll be like, leave it out. You know, you need to come and have a look at this with me, because I need help with stuff like that, because it's not my forte. But if I need to go and sell a product or go and speak to a football team or a cricket team, I'll tell the story. Yeah, I can smash it, because I tell the story about the effect that it will have a team when you're down by 3 wickets, or where you're 3-2 with 90 minutes to go. You know, you never ever count yourself out.
Yeah,
never count yourself out. As long as there's time on the clock, there's time to achieve, and that's what the brand is there. You've got to have that. You've got to keep going to the end.
And that makes complete sense, because you go back to your very, very, very first stories at the top of this recording. It's exactly what you had to do.
Yeah,
that's what exactly you had to do. You had to get out of that vehicle and you had to go. And there was,
I had to get up after the allegations. I had to get out of my bed and I had to go.
Yeah.
And you said that, you know, when you made the transition from military to civilian life, you lost your identity. Actually, your identity has stayed the whole way through. You've just found another way of handling it.
The marathons, you had to get up in the morning and just keep going.
Yeah. The cycling, I cycled across America, 3,000 miles, which was a mad journey with Jay Baldwin, who lost both legs in Afghanistan. We done it for him to go and get the best surgery that he could get. It was horrendous, but we got up and we turned the pedals.
Yeah.
And there was moments where we just didn't want to, but we knew the purpose. We knew what we needed to achieve, and we got up and we turned the pedals. Yeah. So as long as I'm breathing, as long as I'm breathing, I'll be attacking.
I think it's a fantastic message to end on. Clear, very, very, very clear message, and it's been great hearing you bring this to life.
Absolutely, and I think that we could talk for hours and hours. You know, this, as I said before, you know, each of these subjects could have been a podcast episode in itself, but I know the listeners will get a sense of you, your vision, and all the things I love about you and what you've achieved, you know. And I think that everything that you've achieved is so fantastic, and the message is just so clear. Whatever people are facing, whatever challenges they're facing, there's always an opportunity to keep attacking, isn't there? You know, it's just such a clear and inspiring message, and we've probably taken up a lot more of your time than we'd originally planned. But you know, I really love and appreciate you, and thank you.
Thank you very much, Brian. Appreciate that.
No worries, my pleasure. No worries. I hope you know you got what you needed, and I hope the listeners will enjoy it. I do enjoy this sort of stuff. So, but I'm not a pro, but I tried.
Yeah, fantastic, excellent. All right, thanks.
No worries.